Have you ever wanted to take a full-on Guitar Geek vacation? I can already see you nodding your head yes. Well, you're in luck, because today I'm going to share with you my top 10 hotspots to visit when you're in Nashville, Tennessee, also known as Music City. Let's dive right into my top 10 countdown of the hot spots to visit as a guitar geek in Nashville. Coming in at number 10 is the Johnny Cash Museum. Now, when I was in Nashville back in 2013, 2014, I didn't go to this place because, well, quite honestly, I didn't know it existed. But had I known of its existence, I certainly would have been there. This is a museum that was created by a friend of Johnny Cash's, a friend that Johnny Cash met through his own personal memorabilia collecting. In fact, the story behind this museum is pretty amazing. It has tons of artifacts in it. I'm going to say artifacts because I feel like we're going on a musical archaeology tour. This museum has tons of artifacts in it, all the way from Johnny Cash's first childhood toys on up through the different things he wore throughout his career, plus instruments as well. Not to mention a wall from Johnny Cash's house that actually burnt down. It was a stone wall, a stone facade that was actually removed from the site of Johnny Cash's house and placed in the museum. To get a little bit of a sneak peek as to what's in the museum and meet the curator, here's a quick clip.
From Music City, USA, the home of the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee.
You know, when he had the ABC TV series, people from around the world every week would hear him say, "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash coming to you live from Music City, USA, Nashville, Tennessee." And that made Nashville a household word. But if you came to downtown Nashville, there was no Johnny Cash. We decided that it's time to do something to honor my friend, to pay him back for all the good things that he did, not only for me, but for people around the world.
So began the Johnny Cash Museum, which includes just about everything to chronicle the life of Johnny Cash.
When you enter, you're going to see the first toys he ever had as a little boy. They're marbles that he had. That was all they could afford in those days. So you're going to see those. And literally everything in between the birth and the end of the career. There's no death in the museum because when you open that door, Johnny Cash is everywhere. He's alive today.
A must-stop place for any fan of country music and really any fan of the Man in Black. Now, moving on our countdown, let's go ahead and move on to number 9, and that is the BLUEBIRD Cafe. Yes, indeed, the songwriting mecca, if you will. Literally, this place has birthed so many songwriters, and if you're an aspiring singer or songwriter, this is certainly a place to go to seek inspiration. Now, I didn't know much about the BLUEBIRD Cafe. As I mentioned, I was in Nashville from 2013 to 2014. I was doing some recording stuff there, and I didn't know of the BLUEBIRD Cafe at that point in time. I didn't go to the BLUEBIRD Cafe at that point in time, but this last year or two, there was a documentary released, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is certainly a very treasured place for any singer-songwriter. So next time I go to Nashville, I will certainly go there. Now, to give you a little bit of a sneak peek at the magic that happens within the BLUEBIRD Cafe, I found a clip of one of my favorite singer-songwriters, Kelly Jo Phelps, playing at a Songwriters in the Round, of course, at the BLUEBIRD Cafe. And with him there is a bunch of other musicians, but in addition to them, who I don't remember their names, Steve Earle is there in the Songwriter in the Round. So this is a quick little glimpse into some of the magic that can happen at the BLUEBIRD Cafe.
Drums are still playing, I can see them marching close. Dizzy walks like a shadow and then he dances like a ghost. The one that looks like Jimmy scares me the most. I'm a river rat, Jimmy and Jehoshaphat. River rat, Jimmy and Jehoshaphat.
Make sure to go online to see if you can indeed get tickets for the BLUEBIRD Cafe. I believe they're very difficult to come by. It's not a very large venue, but with some due diligence and some research, you may very well be able to get in on your trip to Nashville. Let's move on to the number 8 spot in the countdown, and that is Artisan Guitars. Artisan Guitars is a must-stop place for any guitar geek. How could I not mention a guitar store when I'm talking about Nashville, especially when I'm talking to you, supreme guitar geek of them all. So Artisan Guitars is a place you absolutely must visit, and it is filled floor to ceiling with incredible guitars, acoustics, electrics, mandolins, you name it, resonators, they're all there. Bill and Ellie curate such a wonderful collection within their shop, and luckily for us, they've got a brand new showroom. Now, I haven't been to the new showroom yet, but they took a video tour for us so we can all go on it together. Here it is. I've been stalking their online showroom for quite some time, so I cannot wait on my next trip to Nashville to actually go and physically see their new showroom and see those amazing instruments in person. All right, a quick recap of what we've gone over so far. We've got the Johnny Cash Museum, the BLUEBIRD Cafe, and of course, Artisan Guitars. Now, we're going to continue on this countdown, but first, before we continue on down this amazing countdown, I do want to know, were there any surprises so far for you, or are you worried that I'm not going to mention your favorite Nashville hotspot? If that's the case, go ahead and mention it in the comments below. I'd love for this to become a resource for any guitar geeks going on a Guitar Geek inspired vacation to, of course, Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. Please leave your comments below. I cannot wait to read them, and of course, I can't wait for other guitar geeks to read them as well. All right, this week on Acoustic Tuesday, we've already begun our Guitar Geek Hotspot Countdown, and I cannot wait to continue that. Yes, we're going to dig right into Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, and see what other amazing spots are on my list.
Speaking of Grand Ole Opry, why everybody expects some picking and singing. Well, that's what we're going to do for you here tonight, so we'll start off with a little bit of Hillbilly Fever. Hey, yeah! Hillbilly Fever's going round.
Welcome to Acoustic Tuesday, episode number 151. This is the show where you're going to learn about acoustic guitar gear, discover acoustic artists, and get inspired to live your very best acoustic life. As with all episodes of Acoustic Tuesday, I'm going to share with you my Guitar Geek list for the week. But prior to doing that, we do have to sink into a little bit of Guitar Geek trivia. And of course, I'm going to ask you a Nashville-inspired question. And of course, it's going to include somebody I've mentioned already on today's show. And your question is this. Why was Johnny Cash banned from the Grand Ole Opry? Was it because A, he broke their lights, B, he was swearing during a performance, C, he didn't show up to a scheduled show, or D, Johnny Cash wasn't banned at all? Go ahead and ponder that, and at the end of the show, I'll be sure to give you the answer. Now that we've had a chance to take a moment, collect ourselves after the first 3 spots on our trip, let's go ahead and sink right back into our countdown. Coming in at number 7 is Ernest Tubbs Record Shop. Yes, indeed, I was so lucky to have visited this place when I went there. And for us guitar geeks, it's important that you make this stop. And I say this for 2 very important reasons. Number 1, they've got a great collection of records. I remember going in there and leafing through some vinyl albums and just seeing titles that I don't normally see at record stores. And number 2, and probably the most important reason, is that this place is rich with history. Loretta Lynn played her first show in Nashville there. Hank Williams Sr. played there. And to the best of my recollection, I believe it was the first live music venue on Broadway. That's pretty significant when it comes to Nashville. Plus, well, it was owned by Ernest Tubb. Now, in trying to convey how cool this place was, I was trying to find a video that took you on a tour of the inside of it, and I couldn't really find that. But I did find this vlog of a biker who was biking across country who actually nabbed an interview with the store manager. So please excuse the absurdly close-ups, but I think the information is something that will certainly excite you if you're a guitar geek.
Yeah, I'm Terry Tyson, manager of Ernest Tubb Record Shop. So this record shop is 72 years old now, and what makes it unique is being the first place on Broadway to ever have live music right down here on Broadway. Elvis Presley played here when he was 19 years old, played on this stage here in the radio show. This is the very first place that Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn sang in Nashville. Hank Williams Sr. played in here, but Ernest Tubb started the Midnight Jamboree in here, and today it's the world's second longest running radio show. It's second only to the Grand Ole Opry. So there was a stage used to set up in the middle of the store right there back in the older days. And then in the 90s, there was a stage set up right here where we're standing right here. So during the 90s, boom of country music, this is where all the 90s artists like Alan Jackson, Tracy Byrd, and, you know, Lori Morgan, and everybody in the 90s, Garth Brooks, and everybody would play right here. So then last year we opened up the area and put a new stage back here, opened Loretta Lynn's exhibit in our store here. So we have this entire exhibit here opened up for everybody to see, like a museum now.
That place to me just has it all. It's got the live music, it's got the history, and of course it's got the albums. I could spend hours upon hours upon hours in there. And of course, on my next trip to Nashville, I won't have Whitney be a part of that. I'll probably say I'm gonna go take the first half of the day and spend it in this here record shop. Anyways, a definite place to stop if you're a music geek, if you're a guitar geek, and if you just like music and country music history. Now, that's where you go to pick up records that were made. The next spot finds us going to the place where records are actually produced. RCA Studio B comes in at number 6 on my list, and this is a famed place. Not to mention the hundreds, if not thousands, of hit songs that were recorded there. This was actually operated by Chet Atkins. He was the studio manager. I believe I have that correct. And the beautiful thing about this is that the facade of the building really hasn't changed all that much. Neither has the inside. In fact, from the outside, it looks like you're stepping back in time, and once you go inside, you truly enter a time machine. From the walls to the floor treatment, even to the recording desk that is in there, it's pretty incredible stuff. And I've got 2 videos for you. This first one comes from a tribute to Chet Atkins, where the host, Steve Warner, I believe, kind of sets up how important RCA Studio B is. So here's Steve, take it away.
Hi, I'm Steve Warner, and this is historic RCA Studio B in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, if these walls could talk, man, the incredible music that this place created. This building was built in 1956 at the request of Steve Sholes and the great Chet Atkins. But today we're here.
So now you know how important RCA Studio B is to just music history in general. Let's take a little bit of a deeper look actually inside the studio, where someone from Diddy TV, which is a great live music, live kind of, we'll call it a media company, where they take these really interesting tours of all these fantastic places. They actually went inside the studio and interviewed one of the lead engineers. Here's a clip of that.
To give you an idea of some of the stuff we're seeing in here, I mean, a lot of these instruments are from the period, and were the same ones that were used on the records. You know,
from the 50s.
From the 50s, 60s. You know, we opened in 1957.
Right.
And this piano was here when we opened in 1957. It's older than the building, though. A lot of things we have are older than the building. This was built in 1942 by Steinway, and it started its life at NBC in New York. And then it was in their repair shop briefly before it came down here, and it's been here ever since. So all the records where you hear a nice, you know, grand piano sound, it was a weird chord choice, were all this piano. So this was played by Elvis, by Floyd Kramer. He did the song Last Date on this piano, and just about every session this was used. We still keep it tuned. It's still in good working order and everything. And if you look close, you'll see that the finger marks and things have never been taken away. I mean, that would sort of eat away at the authenticity, you know,
yeah,
if we changed that. So it's a wonderful piece.
And it's still in use in the recording sessions.
Absolutely. Yeah, we use it all the time. it. So.
The cool thing is that RCA Studio B isn't a place that you just drive by and say, oh, wow, that's a neat place. It looks so cool. You can actually go in there. They offer tours where you can go through the halls, smell the smells, and feel the mojo that is within that building. Such a cool spot, and definitely on my list for the next time I get a chance to go to Music City. All right, next up on my list is a place that you can go and experience the true community behind bluegrass music, and that is the Station Inn. The Station Inn comes in at number 5, and it is a place that I was fortunate enough to go, and I gotta tell you, it's got it all. From Sunday jams, I think they do like a Sunday morning breakfast bluegrass jam. They might even do a Sunday night jam. This is the kind of place where you can go and jam, and then just later on in the week, you can go see your bluegrass heroes play. Now, to bear witness to these jams is something that is very special. Now, I found a clip from one of their last bluegrass jams that was on a Sunday night, and it's the closing song, and I think it just captures the magic that happens there. Here it is.
For the Station Inn and all the bar staff, everybody, we thank y'all for coming out tonight. Yeah, thank y'all. Come back and see us soon. Next Sunday.
Now, speaking of magic, have I got something for you to see? So as I mentioned, and as you just saw, you can go there and catch a local jam and participate if you want to. It's magical. You just witnessed that. As I mentioned before, you can also go to that same very place and see your bluegrass heroes on stage. Now, I found a recent clip of Rob Ickes and Trey Hensley playing there with Mike Bubb, and there's a percussionist whom I'm now forgetting the name of, but I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due. They were playing at the Station Inn and invited a 10-year-old Ashlyn Smith up to play guitar. I'm pretty sure she's 10. We'll say between the range of 10 and 12. But wow, what a magical moment, and I'm certainly glad that somebody captured it on video. Here it is. From the public jam to the show right there, the place is pure magic. It really is. As soon as you go in there, it just feels like community. It feels like you belong. It really actually feels more like family than it does community, but I think we can use the two interchangeably here. Now, when I was in Nashville, again, I want to say this was 2013, 2014, I recorded my second album there as an EP called Driftwood, and I was actually able to go catch a show at the Station Inn. And wow, what a magical place. I got to see, on the same stage, I got to see Brian Sutton, Tim O'Brien, Noam Pikelny, and Mike Bubb on bass. It was one of the, I got there, I remember getting there early. I nabbed a front row spot because I couldn't believe I was there. While I was there, I'm now remembering all this happening. While I was there, I look across the room and I see some neighbors from Livingston, Montana, that I know from Montana. There they were in Nashville. So cool. My only regret is that when I was there, I bought a medium shirt. and I think I was a little ambitious in fitting into that medium shirt. It should have been a large, but nonetheless, I will go back and I will get that large shirt. I will procure that large shirt. But definitely put the station in on your list. It's a place that is near and dear to my heart just from that one experience, and I know that once you go there, you'll feel that amazing connection that acoustic music kind of has inherently. Let's move on down the line in our list, and who would I be if I didn't mention another guitar store? I certainly wouldn't be a guitar geek, but luckily I am, so I will mention another guitar store. Coming in at number 4 is Carter Vintage Guitars. Plain and simple, you gotta go. You just gotta go. When you're in Nashville, you're gonna have to set aside a day, and you're gonna have to hit all these shops that I'm about to mention. Well, there's one more. There's this one, and of course, Artisan Guitars. But Carter Vintage Guitars is a beautiful establishment with some of the most amazing examples of vintage guitars that are out there. Not to mention other types of instruments. I mean, you got electrics, basses, of course, mandolins, resonators, acoustic guitars, you name it, they've got it. And it's just a beautiful place. In fact, our friend Jeremy the Guitar Hunter, who you met last week, actually went to Carter Vintage and tried out some guitars, and here's his experience.
So when you first walk into Carter's, it's really easy to feel really overwhelmed just because there are so many guitars, there's so many people, and you're also in Nashville, and so like every guitar player is better than you. There's literally something for everyone, whatever you're into. If you're into upright basses, if you're into cool shreddy electric guitars. For me, I always feel drawn to this wall over here, which is all of the great acoustic guitars, because that's just me and my style. I've always loved acoustic guitars over electric guitars. And I just think that there's something about them that makes something in me just really come alive.
Again, one of the places I never had a chance to actually go in. So next time I'm in Nashville, I will certainly go inside and check it out. Probably spend a good portion of time there. That was one of the crazy things. You know, I went to Nashville to record that album, and I was so excited to be there, but I spent so much time in the recording studio, I didn't get a chance to do all the touristy things. So I'm kind of living vicariously through this countdown and also planning my next vacation before your very eyes. So again, if there's a spot that you think I should hit or that you think your fellow guitar geeks should hit, please put it in the comments below as we go through this countdown. Now, one of the things that really draws me to Carter Vintage Guitars is not only, of course, the instruments, it's the fact that they allow us, guitar geeks, to hear those instruments on a regular basis. They pair these amazing instruments with these amazing players, and they make up a large quantity of the demos that we see and hear on YouTube. One caught my eye that I just wanted to share with you right now. It's Kenny Smith playing Norman Blake's Martin D18H from 1934. In the Carter showroom. It's shot beautifully. It sounds incredible. Here it is. Quick note, if you've never heard Kenny Smith, you should absolutely check him out. One of my favorite albums by him is Studebaker, and it's brilliant. He's a very tasteful flat picker and just has such a wonderful touch with the flat pick. An artist you absolutely need to hear. All right, as I mentioned before, to learn more about any of these places in depth, please visit acousticlife.tv/AT151. And as I just mentioned, if there's any spots that I'm missing in my countdown, if there's any places that you're like, Tone, as a guitar geek, you absolutely have to go to the secret place you know about that I don't, or that other guitar geeks don't, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to, as I mentioned before, make this a resource for any guitar geek that's going to Nashville. And I like food too. I mentioned that medium shirt earlier. It's a large. I like food, so if you have a food hotspot, I didn't put any food in the countdown, but I thought to myself, after all this guitar geeking around, us guitar geeks are going to need food. So if you have any restaurant places, you can go ahead and throw those in the comments as well. I will welcome those recommendations. All right, before we get into the top 3 of our countdown, and there's some wonderful historical significant items in the top 3, I want to visit some comments from episode 149. That's where we dug into part 1 of my Guitarsenal. And let's hop in our time machine and go back and see what the chatter was all about. Our first comment comes from none other than Tom Sands. Luthier in the UK, a mighty fine luthier, I will say so myself. And he says this: I'm so excited for our build. To be able to share the journey with the Acoustic Life family is going to be such a trip. And I couldn't agree more. I'm having a custom guitar built by Tom Sands. And not only am I going to be giving you updates, but Tom and Daisy are going to actually be documenting the whole process so that I can share it with you all here on the Acoustic Tuesday show. Moving on to our next comment, it comes from a viewer by the name of Unequal Partner, I should say viewer by the username of Unequal Partner. And they say this: I've always questioned, why do you never promote Collings guitars? Is it because they don't give you free guitars? I've asked this before, but don't recall getting an answer. Well, I've actually never answered this before, so I'm certainly glad that you asked. I absolutely love Collings guitars. I think they make some of the finest instruments in the business. Between their fit and finish and the tone that they produce, they are truly wondrous instruments. And I think one of the common myths is that us, YouTube folks who review guitars or teach lessons online, we just get free guitars sent to us all the time. That's not really true. Yes, we get guitars to review, but oftentimes those go back to the maker because they just can't go around giving away guitars all the time. And all the guitars that I chose in my Guitarsenal, for the most part, were purchased by me over quite a long period of time. It wasn't certainly overnight. But nonetheless, I just want to underscore the fact that I really enjoy the instruments made by the folks at Collings. In fact, I used to have a mandolin, an MT mandolin from the folks at Collings. And in addition to that, when I bought my Thompson, I was actually calling Matt at Eddie's Guitars to check out a traditional D1A. And he said, Tone, I have to stop you right now because the best mahogany dreadnought in the shop right now is this Thompson made of Cuban mahogany. So that certainly influenced my decision, but I have absolutely nothing against Collings guitars. I think there's some extremely incredible instruments and really enjoy the ones that I have had a chance to play. I've reviewed actually quite a few of them. Our next comment comes from Lisa Byrne, and she says this: wow, that D41 is awesome. The Taylor 717 is nice too, but doesn't have the family history of the Martin. Having said that, I don't think I would say no to either of them. Yeah, Lisa, I feel really fortunate to own both of those instruments, and I agree, that D41 Special, that's my dad's, certainly is the one that is closest to my heart, probably of my entire guitar collection. Second to that is my Martin HD30. Excuse me, my Martin HD35. Moving on to our next comment. This one comes from George Stone, and he says, hey, Tony and Co. George here from Barcelona. Awesome collection there. I have a question. Normally, I identify a dreadnought with the square shape. However, I see in your collection you have more rounded ones that you also call a dreadnought. So my question is it okay to call it a dreadnought because of the size, no matter the shape? And if it is, well, then what's the difference with the Grand Auditorium? I guess actually that's two questions. There are two questions there, George, but I will happily answer both of them. First and foremost, I would say that dreadnoughts are typically larger bodied instruments, but they come in two varieties. One, the more traditional style, which is more square. Think of almost like a rectangle with strings, a very kind of, not a lot of curvature, right? The waist doesn't indent in a whole bunch. And then you have the slope shoulder dreadnought, which is what you noticed. A little bit more of a curvy version of a dreadnought. Still a large-bodied instrument, and that's, to me, what delineates a dreadnought from something else. And another way to look at it is just kind of looking at the waist. Dreadnoughts in general are larger bodied and have a much more broad waist, whereas OMs, triple O's, double O's, single O's, etc. have a much more kind of cinched in waist, right? They're a little bit more curvy. So that's how I delineate between the two in terms of dreadnought versus small body. But yes, of course, dreadnoughts do contain both the square shouldered and the slope shouldered variety. And onto your your other question, speaking of small bodies, Grand Auditorium I would actually place in the smaller body category simply because it has a little bit of a tighter waist. Moving on to our final comment of the day. This comes from JRR, and he says this, Mr. Policastro, regarding this portion of your guitar arsenal, 1. What happened to your Gibson Southern Jumbo? I'm glad you asked because I think everybody that watched that Acoustic Tuesday show, episode 149, was like, hey, Tone, no Gibsons? What gives? I thought you had a Southern Jumbo. I did. I actually had that instrument on an artist deal, and Gibson had given it to me, gosh, this was 5 or 6 years ago. And then when they went under new ownership, I think they were doing inventory or something, and I got a call saying, hey, can I get that instrument back? And I said, sure, no problem. I mean, Gibson's right down the road here, so it's not that big of an issue. I was certainly sad to see it go, but I kind of feel like I lucked out because right around that time, the Santa Cruz Vintage Southerner came into my life. And to be honest, I think that the Santa Cruz Vintage Southerner sounds far better than the Gibson Southern Jumbo that I had. So I feel like I made out okay on that deal. And then the next question that JR says, or statement rather, he says, you're missing, in my opinion, a pre-war model HD and or a pre-war model J. These comprise my favorite dreadnoughts in the Martin-esque and Gibson-esque traditions, respectively. I personally would love to own both one day. I'm considering getting on the list for the HD in the near future. Fantastic episode today. Thank you for showing us your dread/jumbo department. Great instruments. Respectfully, JR in North Carolina. Well, JR, I totally agree with you. I am infatuated with the pre-war model HD. I heard Eli West brought one to the Acoustic Life Festival last year. Blew my mind, completely blew my mind. He was playing it backstage, and I just was listening to this guitar thinking, how is that even happening? It was a brilliant instrument. And then I saw Molly Tuttle here. She played at the Rialto in Bozeman. This was probably two or 3 years ago now, and she was playing her pre-war model HD, and wow, another, again, just mind-blowing tone. So those are certainly on my radar and certainly on my wish list that I keep hidden from Whitney because she might have a heart attack if she saw my wish list. Anyways, moving on. I want to thank everybody for your comments. It's always great to, again, engage in discussion, get your questions answered, and of course, just kind of share a laugh with you all. So I appreciate the comments and the engagement on the episodes. Moving on to a couple more Acoustic Tuesday family submitted items before we jump back into our countdown. I've got a guitar gratitude here from Dennis Michael. And Dennis Michael turned lemons into lemonade. Because of the COVID situation, he wanted to share this piece of guitar gratitude. Take it away, Dennis.
Hello, Guitar Geeks. This is Dennis M. You know, I've always liked the idea of being a guitar player, but I never was willing to put in the work to do it. Well, life changed through COVID-19, and both my wife and I have found ourselves out of work. And at 56 years of age, restarting is a little bit of a challenge. One night, Saturday night, May 2nd, I believe it was, I stumbled across Tony's infomercial, decided to join. Thought, what the heck, if I'm ever going to learn how to actually be a guitar player, now would be the time to start. So, I've been playing every single day since that night. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't put in time, and sometimes multiple hours a day. It has really been great reconnecting with this thing and starting to actually know a little bit about what I'm doing. So thank you so much for the support that you've given when I've submitted videos, for the feedback, and for just being here, because it really makes a big difference while I learn how to play this sax here and look for a new career. So thanks again so much. And Tony, thanks for being here and helping us all out. Guitar Geeks, unite.
Thanks so much, Dennis, for sharing your guitar gratitude. I think it's so cool that you turned a situation into, well, now you're learning guitar. You know, I'm really humbled that you chose Tony's Acoustic Challenge to be your guide along your guitar journey, and I'm so pumped that you started your guitar journey, and I think I say that on behalf of all the guitar geeks watching the Acoustic Tuesday show. Welcome to the family, man, and I think we're all very excited for you, so thanks so much for sharing that. Next up, I have a Guitar-Arsenal from Redding, California. And I think this might be a first in Acoustic Tuesday history. In the near 3 years that we've been doing the Acoustic Tuesday show, this is the first husband and wife guitarsenal. Brought to you by Nolan Randall. This is a his and hers guitarsenal. Now, Nolan is a Tony's Acoustic Challenge member, and he actually just submitted a really cool cover of a John Prine song that I featured in one of our guitar parties. Nonetheless, here's the description of the guitarsenal. This is a his and hers guitarsenal. Since my wife fully supports my gas issues, I have included her collection here also. What is the best way to not have your spouse question that next guitar purchase? Buy them one first. The his portion of the guitarsenal, the front row, we've got a Martin D. Dreadnought Jr., we've got a Samick Greg Bennett, a Martin D35 from 2013. The second row is a Martin 0016 GT, then a Gold Tone Paul Beard's Signature Series square neck resonator, a Recording King RAJ 112 NA, and on the couch we've got a Fender FM52E Sunburst mandolin. The hers portion of the guitarsenal, the front row we've got an Eastman MD815 PGE blue mandolin. On the second row we've got a Martin 0016 GT from 2013, a Takamine F340S from 1974. That one's hiding behind the Martins. A Martin Dreadnought Jr. 2 in Sapele. And on the couch, we've got a $35 pawn shop special. That's a Squier. And a Lyle W460 Hummingbird. And Nolan goes on to say this: most of these guitars / mandolins don't really have that much of a story, but a few do. The Samick Greg Bennett design, it was purchased about 10 years ago from a local public TV station fundraising auction before he even knew how to play guitar. The Lyle W460 Hummingbird was his wife's guitar. She actually bought that in high school in 1971. And then last, the Martin D35. Nolan says this: my mom loved music. She played a bit of piano and sang in church and community choirs since she was a young girl. Her mom also sang, and her aunt taught music in Jacksonville, Florida. When Mom died a few years ago, I wanted to use some of the money she left me to buy something special that was related to music. I think she would approve. I concur, Nolan. I do think she would approve. Great taste. Martin D35 is one of my favorite instruments. And it's funny, I just made this connection as I'm sitting here reading this. Martin D35 was Johnny Cash's choice instrument as well. And we already checked out the Johnny Cash Museum. We have a Johnny Cash-infused trivia question. All the Guitar Geek stars are aligning. Thanks so much to you and your wife, Nolan, for submitting that guitarsenal. Such a treat to see that music indeed is a family affair in your household. Now, if you want to be just like Nolan, I want you to go to acoustictuesday.store. Once you go there, you'll be able to find yourself a guitarsenal shirt. And here's the deal. Once you find that guitarsenal shirt, I want you to pick it, check out, have it shipped directly to your door. Once you receive it, put that shirt on and take a picture amongst all of your guitars. Once you do that, submit it at acousticlife.tv. Once you are there, you can hit the submit link in the top menu, upload your picture, tell us a story just like Nolan did, and I'll feature you in an upcoming Acoustic Tuesday show. But that's not all. I feel like a late night sham wow salesman right now. That's not all, ladies and gentlemen. When you go to acoustictuesday.store to pick out your guitarsenal shirt, make sure to enter the coupon code Guitar-Geek. You are one, and I want you to enter that coupon code because that'll give you free shipping across the entire United States up through the end of August, I believe. That promo is running all the way through summer, and I'm super excited to offer that to you there. But that's not all. Yes, two that's not alls. Once you go to acoustictuesday.store, you'll see probably by this time some new guitarsenal shirts coming into the store. Yes, we've commissioned 2 to 3 additional designs that will be making their way into the store as soon as they are available. So make sure to check out that link. And of course, don't forget that coupon code Guitar-Geek. One more thing before we jump into the countdown. We're Guitar Geeks. I feel like I'm in good company here. I received something in the mail that was truly exceptional. I had ordered a shirt from Gwennifer Raymond some time ago. If you've never heard of Gwennifer Raymond, she is a fantastic American primitive guitarist located in the UK. Her compositions are truly incredible and mind-blowing. I'm certainly a huge fan of hers, so I ordered a shirt. And I found this shirt on Bandcamp, and it just cut straight to my heart because it contains mythical beasts. Yes, indeed. Mythical beast, primitive beast indeed. It has the hodag on it, the Mothman, the Tatzelworm, the, what else do we have here? The Loveland Frogman, the hodag, I mentioned that already, and the Afank. And right in the middle, we've got Gwennifer Raymond. A stellar, stellar illustration, and I was so delighted to get this shirt. I later learned that I think the art was actually done by her sister, which makes it doubly cool. Not to mention, she wrote me a note, which I thought was outstanding. And the note was written on an envelope from Guitar Strings. How cool is that? It simply says, "Thanks, Tony. Hope you like the shirt, Gwen." I do indeed. Thank you so much for getting this sent. I know that mail has been kind of a topsy-turvy situation with all the COVID stuff going on, but wow, I'm so delighted on the shirt. Thanks so much for sending it to me. All right, let's jump back into our countdown. And we have the top 3 hotspots in Nashville right here on my computer that I'm about to share with you. Coming in at number 3 is indeed the Country Music Hall of Fame. Yes, the Country Music Hall of Fame. Talk about a place where you can go and literally sink into history. It's got the gold records. It has the stage outfits. It's got the instruments. It's got everything. It's got rotating displays. In fact, I believe they did one about women in bluegrass where Molly Tuttle and Sierra Hull's instruments and stage outfits were on display. It is the complete package. So if you want to spend a day really sinking into country music history, this is the place. If you're wondering what the inside of it looks like, I found a great little clip, and here it is.
Known as the Smithsonian of country music, the Country Music Hall of Fame brings together the story of the genre and is a key part in a trip to Nashville. As you walk through, you follow the evolution of country music. There's a mix of artifacts, recordings, video footage, and so much more. This is my girl. This is the Shania Twain exhibit. Canada represent here. I love her costumes. I recognize the one with the hood, and I love that one, and I love that one. Can you believe there are over 2.5 million artifacts inside these walls? Check out all these golden records, so cool. The list of artists featured here is long. Hank Williams, Reba McEntire, Dolly Parton, you name it, they're here. They're both permanent and limited engagement exhibitions, so with each visit, there's something new to see.
What a cool place, and I have to give credit where credit's due. That video was brought to you by Viator Travel. It's a Canadian company that they have all these really cool clips of kind of hotspots you can go while traveling through the States. So what a fantastic place, and really, it's the kind of place that you could easily spend a day in between going through all the different exhibits and just taking in the history of country music. I think it's one of those places that on a Guitar Geek vacation, you know, the family doesn't always want to go to a guitar store. The family doesn't always want to go to a concert, but museums are fun really for all ages because anybody can take something away from that, because music history ties into so much with American history. It's they're kind of inseparable, and I think that place sums it up. So definitely put that one on your list. Speaking of history, this next spot is one that while I was in Nashville, I actually walked by, didn't know what it was. I left Nashville. Upon returning from Nashville, then I realized what I had walked by, and I was really bummed that I didn't tour it. Yes, I'm talking about the Ryman Auditorium. Coming in at number 2, this is a must-visit place. The Ryman Auditorium was built in the 1800s, originally as a church. I believe the term tabernacle was used in it. I don't remember the proper name. Nonetheless, the Ryman Auditorium is really an amazing place. Talk about filled with all sorts of musical vibes. The Ryman was home to the Grand Ole Opry from the late 40s through 1974. Prior to that, it was a public hall, and the first sold-out event at the Ryman Auditorium was Helen Keller actually giving a speech, I believe in 1913, if I have my facts straight. Now, check this out. I know there's a lot of confusion because even for myself, I was like, do I feature the Opry House or do I feature the Ryman Auditorium? I'm a history guy, so I wanted to go with the Ryman Auditorium on the list. But here's a quick little kind of demystifying lesson. You got 3 terms: the Ryman Auditorium, the Grand Ole Opry, and the Opry House. The Ryman Auditorium housed the Grand Ole Opry, which is a radio show. Housed it again from the late 40s to 1974. In 1974, the Grand Ole Opry then called the Opry House home. The Opry House was built in 74 and is on kind of, I believe it's in East Nashville. It's a separate entity, kind of a modern version that really can outfit some really amazing shows. Now here's the thing. Both places offer tours, and I would say both are very well worth your time. But again, me being a history guy, I had to choose the Ryman over the Opry House because the Ryman was the OG, the original gangster and the birthplace of really kind of bluegrass and country music as we know it. So please, please check that out. And to really underscore its significance, here's Marty Stewart sharing his first experience at the Ryman on the Grand Ole Opry.
I came up to Nashville on Labor Day weekend. I rode a bus from Philadelphia, Mississippi, my hometown. It's about 375 miles. And at that time, the bus station was right across the street from the Ryman. And I got to Nashville about 2:30 in the morning, and my buddy Roland White, who worked with Lester Flatt, that's the reason I was up here. He had invited me to come up for the weekend to ride along with Lester's band. And so it was 2:30 in the morning, and he wasn't there. And I thought, man, I got scared because I was, country boy straight out of Mississippi, so I was looking for Roland, not to be found. I thought, well, maybe I'm standing in the wrong place, and so I went around the corner and came face to face with the Ryman. And I was 13 years old, and I think at that time the building was 80. And she looked tired, and she looked a little weary and needed repair. But it almost drove me to my knees, because if you're a Southern kid especially, if you wanted to play country music, this was the place to be. And I knew I wanted to be there. And magically, a week later, Lester Flatt had offered me a job. And I walked into the Ryman carrying his guitar, and I've often said that walking into this place carrying Lester Flatt's guitar was like walking into the Vatican with the Pope. And the next thing I knew, I was front and center. He put me on stage, me and Roland White, to sing a song, and at the end of the song, the crowd just kept going. And I didn't know, I thought I'd done something wrong. I looked at Lester, I said, "What do I do?" He said, "Do it again." And it's called an Opry moment. Still, when something really special happens, so I looked behind us, and there was Roy Acuff and his band, and Tex Ritter and his guys, and people were just crowding around behind Lester's band to see what the commotion was about. And that was my first night in Nashville.
Hearing that story, seeing the pictures, knowing the history now, makes me want to kick a young past Tony for just walking by that building and not really connecting the dots. But nonetheless, again, it's on my list for the next trip to Nashville. So we are down to the #1 spot right now. And you're probably on the edge of your seat wondering, is he going to mention the place that I love? I might, but if I don't, again, please put it in the comments below. Again, this is in part me publicly vacation planning, but also sharing what I know about Nashville and identifying some hot spots for all of us guitar geeks to go when we get a chance to go there. So what's the #1 spot? The #1 spot that you must visit as a guitar geek in Nashville is none other than GRUHN Guitars. Now, I did have a chance to go to GRUHN Guitars when I was in Nashville, their old location, which I believe was on Broadway, and they have since moved to a much larger location. But the reason you have to go to GRUHN Guitars is this. It's actually twofold. #1, yes, the amazing instruments. Talk about vintage, talk about new, talk about knowledge under that roof, from the sales staff all the way on up to George GRUHN and the repair department. But I think you also have to go to GRUHN Guitars simply because George GRUHN, and Walter Carter for that matter, of Carter Vintage Guitars, contributed so much knowledge to the guitar world at large when it comes to vintage instruments, categorizing them, identifying them, figuring out what era they're from. I think it's just kind of one of those pilgrimages, I think that's correct, that we guitar geeks have to make when we're in Nashville. And I'm talking if we're even within the state border of Tennessee. You have to go to GRUHN Guitars because it is a place that will make your jaw fall to the floor and you will drool over many guitars, but it's kind of like a homecoming because to me, that's where the whole vintage guitar scene started. In fact, I found this wonderful interview with George GRUHN, who is an interesting character to say the least, where he kind of shares a little bit of a story of how the store got started and how he got into collecting and selling vintage instruments.
This place is absolutely magical to me. How did you get started in the guitar business?
Essentially, GRUHN Guitars is a hobby that got out of hand My background was in zoology. I got my first snake when I was 8 years old, and I still have 20 snakes in my office. And I had developed an interest in guitars, banjos, and mandolins before I learned to play a note on any. And I had friends who played, and they would talk about instruments, and I thought I could look at their instruments, and it was exactly like looking at reptiles. They fit in a very logical order, but I gravitated toward the instruments right away. I just related to them almost as though they were alive, and I still view them as almost alive. And I found that I could look at the instruments exactly the same way that a zoological taxonomist would look at specimens. One day, I got a call at my apartment in Knoxville, which pretty much went like, "Hello, this is Hank Williams Jr. Sonny Osborne told me that you have a bunch of guitars that might be for sale." But at any rate, he brought one guitar with him that he wanted to trade, and he bought 3 guitars from me. He said that Nashville didn't have anybody like me, and if I ever wanted to come to Nashville, he could have an apartment waiting for me, and he'd be interested in helping me start a music store. He never did help me start a music store, so Hank and I are still friendly, because we didn't go into business with each other.
And another bonus reason that you absolutely must go to GRUHN's guitar shop is that you don't necessarily have to buy a guitar. Just because you're on a Guitar Geek vacation, you might have, blown the budget getting to Nashville, and that's totally okay. You can go there, you can grab a coffee mug or a book, actually just like I did when I was at GRUHN's in Nashville, again, at their old location. I also got a t-shirt at that time. We all know how that went. I bought a medium because it looks good on the tag, but when I put it on, I kind of look like a stuffed sausage a little bit. So yeah, next time I go to GRUHN's, I'll have to get another shirt of the proper size so I can proudly sport my guitar geekism. All right, so there you have it. My top 10 places to go when you're in Nashville, Tennessee as a guitar geek. If you want a quick recap, let me give you the rundown. We've got the Johnny Cash Museum, the BLUEBIRD Cafe, ARTISAN Guitars, Ernest Tubbs Record Shop, RCA Studio B, the Station Inn, Carter Vintage Guitars, the Country Music Hall of Fame, the RYMAN Auditorium, and GRUHN Guitars. You might have noticed that I scroll with my right hand when I do the computer. That's because I have calluses on my fretting hand, and sometimes it doesn't allow me to move the mouse. Guitar geek problems. I know, right? Well, I'm about ready to wrap up the show here. I hope you've had a blast with me and my tour of Nashville, but we have one more quick order of business, and that is, of course, your Guitar Geek trivia question. And it includes Nashville stalwart Johnny Cash and something that he may or may not have done. Here's a quick reminder of what the question was. Why was Johnny Cash banned from the Grand Ole Opry? Was it because A, he broke their lights? B, he swore during a performance? C, he didn't show up to a scheduled show? Or D, Johnny Cash actually wasn't banned from the Opry? Well, if you answered A, breaking their lights, you're correct. On October 5th, 1965, Johnny Cash dragged his microphone stand across the front of the Ryman stage, breaking all the footlights. Due to his actions, he was banished from the Opry, but 4 years later, on June 7th, 1969, he actually returned to the Ryman stage as the host of his own ABC television series, The Johnny Cash Show. The show was filmed at the Ryman and debuted on national television. Cash insisted the show be filmed in Nashville, saying that the Ryman was the place, the true home of country music, slap bang in the middle of all the authentic stuff and real country people, both musicians and fans. Artists such as Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, The Who, Derek and the Dominos, Louis Armstrong, and Stevie Wonder performed on his groundbreaking show. I've seen the Johnny Cash biopic. Is that what it's called, Kyle? The biopic? Yeah. Yeah, the with Joaquin Phoenix and was it Reese Witherspoon? Yep. Who played June Carter Cash? They actually do a pretty good job of depicting that scene in the movie where he smashes the footlights. Nonetheless, a pretty iconic moment in musical history, and of course, Johnny Cash history as well. All right, well, we have arrived at the end of our tour now, and I want to give you a quick sneak peek into next week, see what's going to happen on Acoustic Tuesday. Next week, we're going to celebrate the women who are revolutionizing bluegrass music. Yes, indeed, you'll learn about the formidable females of the bluegrass world and come away with some new artists to check out and a healthy dose of inspiration. That's happening next week on Acoustic Tuesday. Remember, you can catch Acoustic Tuesday every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time here on YouTube. And for your Acoustic Tuesday fix in between Tuesdays, please just visit acousticlife.tv, where you can do a deep dive on anything I've ever featured on the show. I certainly hope to see you in Nashville when I am there next. And until then, Guitar Geeks Unite. Have a great Tuesday, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Cheers.